agus fàilte go t-seachdain den program ag BBC Alba hadal go crea cuideachd na scéalach in a seaar an an sil spórs an ban. Is me Iona Ballantyne agus am tolige fàilte cuideachd úr chuin Tuath sí sé an Àrd-Oifigear Ball Coise an ban an Alba Aileen Chaimbeul. Ar program na heiche noch, Cluinnidh bonn-glèidh Èirinn ag Dundee United Lauren Perry sí a Geamaichean club ein Tuath go Ep13. Agus hasna brún rís an lùth-chleasachd Neah Evans sí géiscein man bhain airgid rothaireachd a Coiseannaigh ag na Geamaichean Oilimpigeach and Tokyo. Aileen, welcome to 360.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's good to have you on because I know you are still at the start, can we still say,
yes,
of quite a big role that you've taken on with Scottish women's football. So can you tell us a bit about that and how things have been?
Yeah, so I joined Scottish women's football in August, so yeah, very still new and fresh in the door. So yeah, it's really great and a real privilege to work in a sport that I love and to have an opportunity to grow the game, to grow the visibility of the game and to really drive the women's game forward in Scotland. So it's a real privilege and a real opportunity, one that I'm going to relish. There's been challenges, even though it's only 3 months in the door, but nonetheless a lot of opportunity ahead and an exciting moment for women's football.
Because I know you're also kind of hoping to take things from when you were younger and make them better for women in sport. Because what was sport like for you growing up?
Yeah, when I was at primary school, I grew up in Perthshire, a small rural country school, and there were only 2 teachers. There was only about 30 kids and there weren't enough boys to play football, and of course it predominantly was and thought of as a boys' sport, but so actually we just all mucked in, we all played, and it wasn't really viewed as something out of the ordinary for any girl to be playing football. We just all had a great time creating a team, playing for the school at 5-a-side competitions and enjoying the opportunity to play sport and to play it locally. But like so often is the case, it was that transition for me up to secondary school when I fell back from sport, and that stuck with me, and I've had the opportunity, I think, throughout my career in politics and now to try and work how we try and tackle some of those things. But that said, when I was at primary school, unfortunately I did also have quite a poor experience and a bad memory, which again has spurred me on to try and make a positive impact now. And I was told by a visiting coach that football wasn't for girls and to go away and play hockey, and that's devastating and that sticks with you. And I think for me it underlines the impact, the important fact that for young kids that these memories are deep-seated and long-lasting. So we need to make sure that when a girl or boy enters sport that they get a really positive feel for it, because if we form really good habits early on in life, they last a lifetime and hopefully go on to have a lifelong love of sport, whatever that sport may be. Of course now, primarily wanting that to be football, but yeah, what an opportunity for me now to try and make a difference. Things have thankfully moved and improved, but there are still things that we need to overcome and challenges that we need to take on.
And that's the thing, I mean, for so many girls, like yourself when you were growing up, and young women especially, there will be so many people in Scotland, around the world, who went through the exact same thing and missed these opportunities that are thankfully available now. But I know even with your role before as an MSP, you're quite heavily involved in women and girls sport, weren't you?
Yeah, during my time in government, I had 2 years I was the Minister for Public Health and Sport, and again a real opportunity and a real privilege to serve in government and to have a portfolio that I really cared strongly about. So during that time I set up the Girls and Women in Sport Advisory Board to help advise government about the actions that we needed to take ourselves, but the culture change that we needed to inspire to try and encourage more women and girls to take part in sport, but also to get active. So we had some really big figures around the table that were able to give us their expertise and knowledge to help shape the direction of sport for women. And yeah, I think one of the big things that came from that was Women and Girls in Sport Week, which has just now celebrated its 5th year. So again, to see online across the country so many things happening, driven by volunteers, driven through community effort to ensure that women and girls get the opportunity in sport is really exciting and really wonderful to see, because it shows how different things are now for women and girls in sport, but nonetheless, we can't take the foot off the gas. There is still more that we need to do.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, things have moved forward. They're moving forward quickly. They have moved forward quite a lot, even in the past couple of years. But I know at the start of your role, was it day one, we still see the effects of women's sport, and probably had a lot to do with the pandemic with Forfar Farmington.
Yeah, so that was a devastating blow. So yeah, literally day one of me starting my new role, we got the news that Forfar Farmington were looking to withdraw from SWP L1, and it was devastating. I grew up in Perthshire. It was that bit of Perthshire that's not far away from Angus, so it was always kind of in my knowledge that Forfar Farmington had been a real driving force for women's football for some time. So really sad to get that news. I know how impacted the team were up in that were being organising and involved with the running of Forfar Farmington, how impacted they were about that really difficult decision that they had to take, and I guess illustrated as well the fragility that still exists in women's football. So we have got lots of great things to talk about around how successful the league is, the competitiveness of the league, the support that clubs are putting into their women's teams, the coverage on BBC Alba, lots of really positive things happening, but still a fragility there that we need to really be cognisant of as we try to grow the game further, about how we support those clubs as well that may require just that wee bit effort to ensure that they don't get left behind. And of course that's, you know, I'm sure subject of some discussions that we'll be having with clubs in the future, but certainly shows that when we're growing the game, we need to make sure it's sustainable.
All right, well, a lot happening. Thank you very much. So here at Àrd-Oifigear Ball Coise, has she brought neach-glèidh Dundee United Lauren Perry. As she toshig an Èirinn a Tuath, so nourish na glue said go Blackburn and a Sasainn, a kush na Àrd-Oifigear glan, coloration na tangerines.
A Lauren Perry iddi bhí a cluich mar neach-glèidh an na ball coise na ban son barach na céad bliana, agus leis go bhfuil Àrd-Oifigear bliana agus se rud íontach a sin. Tá si go dríach cluiche go ceart Colladí Linfield nó de bhaid siapla na díach agus.
Yeah, so Linfield actually tried to tap me up the season before it, and like I've actually supported Linfield like all my life. My dad's took me to matches since I was a young girl, so when it kind of came about, it was like kind of go, and yeah, me and my dad, yeah, there was a bit of a fallout between us. He says, no, I don't think you're ready yet. I'd only been playing senior women's football for 1 year, so he kind of said no, and I think you need another year at Ballinhinch, and I guess looking back now, it probably was the best decision for me and my development. But then when I did make the move, like you said, it just took off just like that. That's all I wanted to do, was get a season under my belt. And then, like you say, I was Women Premiership Player of the Year, NIFL Player of the Year, and Women's Sport Personality of the Year. And to be honest, it seems like ages ago, but I think I was only still 17 maybe, I think, when I won them all. I actually can't remember. Looking back, like it does look like I don't feel like I'm 20, like, because I've fitted all that in. But yeah, no, it has been a good career so far.
A cainnic Lauren iad saoirach dábílas a hochdiag mar rud a gáirithe dríach. Leis go mas a chluiche tuscipe éiding a Tuath fa seachplan diag, who di braf an artscipe, gamal lua a stewi sin.
I just remember a reporter like saying to me after the Germany game, like, we got beat 6-0, and he was like, you know, your manager's standing right beside you, like, do you think he'll get a call into the senior squad? And I just remember in my head being like, what are you on about? Like, I'm only 16, like, no way would I get a senior call up. And then literally a week later, yeah, I got the phone call to say I got called up. And to be honest, I was so nervous. I was like, I can't go to that. I'm too young. But once I got my head around it, and people were like, no, you've deserved it. You know, you've worked for this chance. And went and made my debut, got player of the match in my first game, voted by my fellow teammates, which, like, to be honest, was just like surreal as well. Like the likes of like Rachel Furness, Ashley Hutton, they're all sitting there, and they're just great role models for women's football in Northern Ireland. And then, like you say, I went on to play in the Champions League with Linfield, and then after that I was back down to Northern Ireland under 17, so like that whole summer was just football, football, football.
Cluich and t-seachdain call the Blackburn Rovers and the Sasainn was Jackie for farmington and t-seachdain-sa. I should be calling and manager a club, Ryan McConville.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't too keen on a move to Scotland at the start. My agents kind of had to keep nipping away, and they were like, do you want to come to Scotland? I was like, oh, I don't know, I maybe want to stay in England. And they kept just nipping, and then obviously I've known Ryan from back home, and I got chatting to him, and the more I was like, oh, like, I think I'm going to go for it. And you know what, it's like the best decision I've ever made. Like, I love it here and can't really see myself moving again. But yeah, like getting into that top league, I was playing against high up positions. I know come the end of the season, like it wasn't the best for us. We had lost a lot of players and we were struggling with injuries, and results obviously didn't reflect on us as a group. But playing against high quality opposition was good for me because it meant I got to test myself at the highest level.
Chríoch ní chéad season ag Lauren an the ball coise na Alba and the dèidh scanneal. But an the Cuideachd skip aiche gus puin givunnig, out in a minute and me yedig and their hearts.
Yeah, do you know what? Like, I always said that, like, I always wanted to score a goal, and I actually had a sore quad that day, and the manager was like, go, and I was like, no way am I getting that in the box. I says, if I get up, I'm not coming back. He's like, I don't want you to get back. I says, right, okay. So I just started going, and I was like, can I just take it? And you know, Cassie, like, she takes everything, and I know she wasn't too happy when I pushed her off it, and obviously then she was looking me to play her down the line, and I was like, there's no way I'm running up this whole way just to play you down the line. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it was a cross, but you know, for it to end up in the back of the net was just the best, probably the highlight of our first season, to be honest. But yeah, no, it was good.
Ruinich Lauren Tronas Staure, Gerois on Fudach and an Alba, gus Cluiches an Àrd-Oifigear Ball Coise Dundee United. Han Jigley a Dochus give the howls a Cluich an Àrd-Oifigear Dundee United, gus fine can a free league and Bliana.
Yeah, definitely, you know, like when speaking to Dundee United, like obviously that is a league down from where I was. But for me, like obviously I know their plans and I know their ambitions, and you know, Dundee United is a team that want to be in the top league. So for me, like, I know I am only 20, but I know I've got a lot of experience. So for me going there, it was, can I bring my experience to them? I have like a bit of a taste of playing in the top league. So can I take that to them and hopefully prepare them for hopefully getting promoted?
Ha Lauren Tolliche an an Alba, agus ha hada it ball coise a Cluich ho trich sa Suringi. Agus ha dochus galension and nurshin, gus service ag ide clubbe, agus ide internationte.
To be honest, well, with Dundee United, hopefully getting them into the top league and, you know, sticking with them, and hopefully being with them for a few seasons and seeing where we can progress with them. I think in terms of international for myself, I have been out of it the last couple of months. So I think for me, it's just getting myself back in and around that. And hopefully I can get, you know, what the squad has done is unbelievable and what they've achieved is unbelievable, and it is really good for football in Northern Ireland. But hopefully I can start knocking on Kenny's door again and see where I can go from there.
Aileen, it's so nice to hear from Lauren, and especially the fact that she chose to stay here in Scotland with Dundee United, because she could have gone anywhere. She could have gone back to England, back to Northern Ireland. Oh yeah, what a remarkable career. And it's funny hearing her talking about this career she's had, and she's still so young, and what she's crammed in in such a small space of time. International appearances, being able to play for a number of different clubs and playing in Scotland at its highest level, and now settling and being ambitious with Dundee United. So a remarkable role model, and just shows you what's possible at a young age. Totally, and that's the thing. I mean, she could have gone anywhere, but for you, How important is it to retain players like Lauren in Scotland and have them develop their game here?
Oh, I think it's really crucial. And again, that's another thing that we need to work through across women's football, about the strength of our clubs, how we support our clubs, how we get more resources into the women's game, and ultimately that will then help our national team as well if we have good quality players. And there's currently a youth review ongoing by Scottish Women's Football to think through how do we support and develop those young players and what's the best way to do that. And of course clubs have been a part of those discussions. So yeah, it's really important that we have good quality players to enable us to have the strongest possible national team. Asking ourselves, when's the next Èirinn Cuthbert coming? You know, all those different things that we need to think through. But at the same time as well, I know how rich the experience is for players here to go and develop abroad, and there's lots of players across the world at the moment who are showcasing their talents. Lana Cleland for one, and who are coming back and bringing that experience to the national team and hopefully enriching the women's game as well.
Just back to the first part of what you were saying there, how are the discussions coming along? Do you have any kind of immediate plans in terms of developing kind of all these youth players coming through?
Yeah, so the youth review preceded my appointment, and I think, you know, like so many things, COVID has had an impact on that, and it had been a bit of work that has been had been started before COVID and has taken a wee bit longer, but nonetheless it's been really consultative. There has been a youth panel, so it's been really important to have had that youth voice in the mix as well, to ensure that we're listening directly and engaging with young players themselves to know and hear and understand their experiences, what they think needs to happen. That's been members of my team who have been really leading and driving that in order to ensure that we've got really good, strong pathways and vision and ambition to develop and nurture young players in Scotland. And all the while it's with that eye to growing the game, developing the quality of the game, and also supporting ultimately the national team as well. So exciting times, signals more change, but I think, you know, women's football is having to constantly evolve as the context in which we play in changes.
It is hugely important. If we just go back to Lauren as well, I mean, she was talking about Farfarmton. We were talking about them at the start of the show too. She speaks so candidly about her goal with Farfarmton, which she wasn't expecting in the first place. Unfortunately, after that, there was a lot of social media backlash, a lot of misogyny online. For you, how important is it to protect people in the women's game from that kind of abuse, or how do you even deal with that?
So I think you're right, and I've come from a workplace where in politics, where again it's not unknown for women and female politicians to have been on the receiving end of misogynistic comments and online and in social media. And the same, unfortunately, is what women are experiencing in sport, not just football, but across sport. So it's something that we need to tackle and to challenge. And again, you know, I think that's a big priority will be coming for Scottish women's football, is about how do we support the welfare of our players? How do we make sure that players who are now on the television more often, how do they cope with that? How do we work collectively between ourselves and the clubs to make sure that there's the right support structures in place to help support women? And how do we call it out and challenge misogyny? And that's something that's really important that we do as well, because it's not acceptable that women still encounter these outdated, horrible views online and have to endure that. It's not fair and it shouldn't be tolerated. And so again, there's that leadership role that we can play to help try and change the culture. And of course we'll work with the governing body as well, and other sports bodies too, because again it's not just in football that we see that, and it maybe requires us all to work collectively across sport to tackle and challenge that. Interestingly, I think the Welsh FA have just launched some, I think a toolkit, I think, to try and tackle online hate. So again, other governing bodies and other football authorities across other countries often will provide us with learning about what's the most appropriate way for us to support our players. The other thing that I found quite interesting about Lauren's story, how young she was when she moved home. And for me, that's something as well. We need to make sure that right supports are in place, that we make sure that those really young athletes are supported if they have to leave home. And you know, I guess that just maybe draws out for me the theme of welfare for players.
Absolutely, and it does also show that retaining these players in Scotland too, it doesn't just have to be SWPL 1. Lauren is playing now in SWPL with SWPL 2, sorry, with Dundee United, and they have big plans as well. So for you, even seeing the difference between SWPL 1 and 2, how do you sort of bridge that gap going ahead?
Yeah, so I think the other thing that struck me from what Lauren was saying was how ambitious Dundee United are, and actually SWPL 2 is a really competitive league, and that's great, because one of the things that I think is often suggested around women's sport, women's football, is around that competitiveness. And you know, in SPL 1, we've got 3 strong clubs: Rangers, Celtic and Glasgow City, and a really competitive rest of the league as well, but none of them without ambition about how to grow, how to challenge, and how to make sure that the leagues can be as good and as competitive as they can be. But interestingly, I'd had a discussion with the people involved with the WSL, and the point was made to me is that a lot of women's football leagues are struggling with that competitiveness, that's not unique to Scotland, around trying to kind of bridge that gap, and it's actually something that you can see in many European countries and of course down in England as well. So I think that again it's just something around how we sustainably grow the game and make sure that there is support there for clubs that are ambitious to not be left so far behind that it ends up becoming too far a gap for clubs to bridge. The other thing as well that I kind of often hear is around how maybe there are frustrations with the men's game, and if we're growing the game at this pivotal moment, then maybe there are lessons there that we can avoid some of those pitfalls, and that we can really think critically about how we grow this really precious thing sensibly and sustainably, and hopefully ensure that we have leagues that flourish and are competitive.
Absolutely, well, it's all very interesting, but thank you. In Alba neach-glèidh bhó Alba nach éile chuair bán ag na Geamaichean Oilimpigeach an Tokyo, thosaigh Neah Evans rothaireachd go nuair nach buaireadh í trénach san spórs I bpéir le rúi. Seán scílach éige.
Soundra awn far a Geamaichean cumalaith falla von a bhí rui, nu the cheann a bhí ag an dalapanach Neah Evans an the ráireach.
So started off, did that, joined the Hares and Hounds, loved it, didn't take it that seriously. It was very much of the, at university I'm going to enjoy being a student and the student lifestyle. And then in my final year, I ended up kind of getting ill and injured at the same time, and I just couldn't run. And I thought, right, what can I do to try and keep fit until I can get back running? And my dad had suggested, well, he'd always said, you'd actually be better at cycling than running. And I kind of gone, yeah, cool, Dad. I don't really care. I like running. And then when I couldn't run, I was like, right, maybe I should actually listen to him. And I did like a taster accreditation at the Cluinnidh velodrome and went, oh, actually, this is really fun. And because I found that I could do it when I couldn't run, I was like, well, I'll do this until I can get back running. You know, I'll keep some fitness kind of thing. And yeah, just it stuck. And it progressed very quickly from being oh, this is just a bit of fun to, oh, this is a bit more than a bit of fun. And then, well, I'm going to start racing. And then I got in the Scottish programme, and then I got in the British programme, and then I got to Olympics, and yeah.
Le bhí fáin corm a gácú Geamaichean Oilimpigeach an na dábilas a Àrd-Oifigear, hu Neah úne amach ba húpar mar Dr. Bhewach, is anna bhí na lùth-chleasachd lá úne.
It was 2017, so it was just before the Commonwealth Games, and I thought, right, hang on, if I'm going to go to the Commonwealth Games, everybody else I'm going to be racing against will be a full-time athlete. So yeah, let's take this opportunity. And I still actually remember going in to speak to my boss to say, listen, I've been given this opportunity to join the British cycling programme. But obviously that means I take out retirement, if you like. And he was just like, yeah, you'd be nuts not to do it. And I was like, yeah, I kind of would. At that stage, I thought it was maybe an opportunity to get to the Commonwealth Games and then probably end up coming back to being a vet. Because I was still very, very new. So I just didn't know how far I could make it. as a cyclist. And I thought, well, I'll take this opportunity of, you know, it might only be a couple of years of being a full-time athlete, but it's not an opportunity many people get. Let's do it. And then I'll come back to being a vet. And how many years later are we? 5 and a bit years later. And I'm still on my sabbatical, so yeah.
Chórt na Geamaichean Oilimpigeach is an roiche gomór, agus híli a das le bewn airgid agus bewn nua.
Oh, I loved it. It was my first kind of major championships. Obviously we're in Gold Coast, so it was amazing kind of to be over there. We flew out, I can't remember how advanced now, a couple of weeks in advance. We did like a holding camp in Sydney before we went up, so it just felt like this kind of almost glorious holiday. And then yeah, we raced, and racing went really well for me. I knew physically I would be capable of medaling, but it's such a high standard of competition, and especially with track racing, so much of it can come down to kind of just a split-second decision or luck, and you know, you can do really well or equally race is over. So to come away with 2 medals, yeah, it was very special.
Gaf Neah páirt na Geamaichean Oilimpigeach agus thosaigh bewn airgid, a cúmal adult tradition teolaigh ag na Olympics.
Immensely proud. I guess when I first started cycling, I kind of thought, right, let's see how far I can get it and just enjoy the kind of process, if you like. And there was a tiny part of me that thought, oh, getting to Olympics would be absolutely incredible. I think because my mum went, it was something that I kind of felt would be very special, but also, you know, it wasn't like a dream. You know, you speak to some people and they say, oh, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to go to the Olympics. I just didn't think it was anything kind of on my radar. And then when kind of cycling came along and I was out to Gold Coast and I got those good results, I kind of thought, well, maybe the Olympics is actually possible. And then, yeah, to come away with a medal was very special. Would have liked a different colour, but no, it was amazing. It was such a bizarre experience, just with the whole build up, you know, COVID and all these things. At one point we didn't think it was going to happen, and there's just so many things that can go wrong at the last minute, injury, you know, just so many little things that can happen, you know, just part of life. So yeah, to actually be able to go compete and come back with a medal was almost a little bit of a relief.
Ha Neah mochtdal iad na haid Cluinnidh go seo, agus ha dhéanú fiúr dí farpas na Cluinnidh ha gáláte an na Alba and na dábílas a trí airgid.
I guess for me, I still have a drive and a passion of going, right, there's a lot of things that went well in those races, but actually a lot of the time you think, oh, could have improved that, could have improved that. So yeah, I guess it's trying to improve the colour of some of those medals. Yeah, but I feel very privileged that I've been able to compete and go and do all this. And yeah, I just hope I can keep doing it for quite a lot longer. In 2023, we've got the World Championships coming to Scotland and for the track to Glasgow. It's particularly special because for the first time ever, all the different cycling disciplines are going to be, if you like, under one umbrella. So normally BMX, mountain biking, all these things, they happen somewhere else and different times of the calendar. Whereas for the first time ever, it's all going to be in Scotland, in Glasgow, happening at once. So it's going to be much more like a major championships. So you get to mix with all the different athletes, even probably go away and see, you know, some of the different events. Like when we're out in Tokyo, we weren't able to go and watch different sports, which is normally one of the things that kind of athletes actually quite enjoy when they get to a major championship. So yeah, Glasgow is going to be particularly special in 2023 because yeah, it's going to be unique, first time ever. And obviously for me, it's, you know, it's at home, it's the velodrome I learned to ride on. Hopefully friends and family will be there. But yeah, it's something that I'm really looking forward to.
Well, it's quite amazing how things work out, isn't it?
What a path she's taken, remarkable story, and just so matter of fact about it all.
Yeah, and especially even from being at uni and running, and then totally changing sport, and now she is an Olympic silver medalist.
And I know it's incredible to think, and I suppose as well it maybe underlines why sport is so important, and important to do these things at a young age. she had the ability, the skills that were nurtured that has enabled her to switch sport, and that resilience that she's had through that love of sport and pursuing sport, which is so important. Again, it just underlines that a variety of sport is so important at a young age, and then you can follow your particular path. It just so happens that her path was certainly not linear and she showed remarkable resilience as well.
Absolutely, and what a sabbatical that she's having.
I know.
There can't be many people achieve so much.
Exactly, and just the next Commonwealth Games, the World Championships, all these things, and hoping to do better and improve all the time. And lovely to see how influential her dad was in her life, like Lauren earlier on, around how what club she went to go and play for. So yeah, that family support clearly very important as well in supporting those decisions for these athletes who again are quite young and are making big decisions. So a really wonderful story, and what a credit to her resilience, her personal resolve, and her commitment to doing the best that she can.
There's also, like we were just saying off camera, there's something about being a vet, because we've got Neah Evans, Laura Muir, Hannah Smith from the Scotland women's rugby team.
Yeah, absolutely, and again that goes back to that resilience that they must have, and that discipline to be able to combine quite demanding academic careers alongside the demands of high performance sport, which interestingly I had during Women and Girls in Sports Week. I took part in a panel event, and it was sponsored by a law firm, a legal firm, and it was Elaine Farquharson-Black, who had been a professional golfer. Judy Murray was on it as well, but Elaine's story was quite interesting because they, when they're looking to recruit people, recognised what sport can give individuals around that discipline, about what you learn as how to compete, how to be part of a team, that these transferable skills are really important for life outside from the track or the pitch as well, and maybe there's something in that around how the skills that we've learned as athletes are so applicable to them being able to pursue these academic careers in their own right, and in this case vets.
Because we do see that so often throughout women's sport. We've got women competing at the highest level and working full-time jobs alongside. It is really amazing to see, specifically.
It's really demanding, and that's an important thing to remember, I think, when we're looking at the SWPL 1. Apart from a few clubs, that the lion's share of those women who are competing at a high level and doing really well and being a real showcasing the sport at its highest level, but they're also combining work and other caring roles and other responsibilities that they may have, and that makes their stories all the more remarkable, and something that we should be shouting loudly about how impressive, how inspiring they are for girls, not just girls, but anybody wanting to pursue a career in sport.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we'll see Neah she'll probably continue on her sabbatical, because like she said, there's the 2023 World Championships coming to Glasgow, which is fantastic for sport in Scotland across male and female sports, but even to have everything under one roof for girls coming through and for women coming through cycling at that time, that would be fantastic to see.
Oh, brilliant. And that the fact that this knits together all the different types of cycling events, BMX, outdoors, in the velodrome, that makes it really special too. And of course Glasgow has really put itself at the forefront internationally as a place to showcase and host great events, and that was true of the Commonwealth Games, the Euros, the European Championships, and now for the cycling World Championships in a couple of years' time. And interestingly, she was at the Gold Coast, how much they learned from Glasgow's experience of hosting the Commonwealth Games, because that expertise that had been amassed in Glasgow, in Scotland, to host spectacular events. And we should feel really proud of that, and it does have a legacy, it has an impact, it increases that visibility, and if we can see more inspiring role models like we've seen today in these clips, then that's another reason why it's important to have women on the television in front of you to show just what's possible.
It must be great for you too, even in your previous role and in your current role now, to see Scotland again kind of cemented on that world stage for sport.
No, absolutely. I think so. When I was the Minister for Sport, I was lucky enough that was at the point in time when there was the Commonwealth Games, and there was such a lot of interest in Glasgow's experience, a lot of learning, a lot around the legacy, and there's things, you know, of course, things that you would do differently and things that you would change, but nonetheless, the respect, international respect for what Glasgow had done and what Scotland had achieved was palpable, and these big events are important for in so many ways: the visibility, the legacy if you do it right, and the investment that has to go alongside creating spaces for people to participate in. So it should be, and that's when it's done well, it should have a lasting legacy, and that's always the challenge of these big sporting events, is to make sure that there's impact for our communities as well. And you know, it's great then to see how careers can progress through those events and achieve wonderful things.
It is, it's amazing to see. But if we just turn back to you quickly as well, with your role within Scottish women's football, what's kind of on the radar now? What are you working towards this year, over the next couple of years, even 5 years?
Yeah, so for me it's about increasing the audience, increasing the visibility of the sport, increasing revenue, and that commercial revenue that is so necessary in order to support our clubs and to support the game more generally. So we are looking to do all of those things, and those things will be important regardless of the year. And ultimately I want to see every girl across Scotland recognising that football is a sport for them, that they should want to take part in, that they can take part in, and that if they want to, that they can progress up to the very highest level. So that will require us having to work really hard, and we're recruiting new members of staff into the team to make sure that we have the capacity to do all those things, the visibility, the commercial input, and increasing our audience numbers. So we're getting ourselves ready, getting the infrastructure right to make sure that we can continue to work with our clubs to grow the game. And there'll be some important questions that we'll all have to face around how that happens and what form that takes. But I'm really excited because change is exciting, and we're at a critical moment, a critical juncture for women's football where we can really accelerate the growth, and we should not limit our ambitions. So I'm really excited to be in this post at this time to help shape that growth going forward, but know that I can't do it on my own. We have to work in collaboratively with other partners to do that. And this is something that I've said often in previous roles, that we're a country of 5 million. The only way that we can progress the things that we want to is by working in partnership. We're a small country, therefore we need to work together, and if we are united by a strong ambition and vision, then that should make these things all the easier.
Well, it is all very exciting. It's keeping you very busy in your role.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us and taking your time out today to talk to us.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, sin son program na seachcainsa, céad tang do géalainn son bhí callroom san studio. Jan cín seach go bhfuil se bh lentan trí seascad YouTube agus géisiún program a dhéire gacín iPlayer a BBC. Fiach an bí séh arás na cheachcain son barach scíalchan muna boranich ingantach an spórs na Alba. Mar sin leibh an drá.